Evil existed not where a madman cut life violently short, but where one obsessively tried to prolong it. This is a horrific tale about a man named Karl Tanzler. In a small town outside of Dresden, Germany, young Karl is born into a middle-class family, where he is destined to live an average, ordinary life. That is, until a bizarre event changes everything.
Don't be afraid, Karl. I would never harm you. Come to me, boy.
Who are you?
I am your family, your blood. Only I've been dead a long, long time.
Karl Tanzler wrote in his memoirs that as a boy, he was visited by a ghost. An ancestor, his great-great-aunt, a woman named Countess Anna Constantia von Cassel.
Give me your hand, Karl.
The apparition goes on to tell Karl about someone he will meet when he is much older who will change his life.
A beautiful, raven-haired Spanish beauty with long black hair. This woman will be the love of your life. She will be your destiny, Karl. Do you know what that means? Remember this, always.
The words of the apparition are forever burned into young Karl Tanzler's brain, and more importantly, into his heart.
After that, Karl Tanzler and his family moved from his native Germany to Australia. He met plenty of women, but none that he felt he was destined to be with. As an adult, Karl Tanzler immigrated to the United States. He ends up in Key West, Florida, where he works in a hospital as an X-ray technician.
I think that,
Yes?
A beautiful, raven-haired Spanish beauty.
There, in a Key West hospital, appears the living, breathing fulfillment of the prophecy.
You've been looking at my x-rays and... The patient is Maria Helena de Hoyos, a beautiful 21-year-old woman being treated for tuberculosis. She came from a poor family that had immigrated from Cuba to Florida.
I know I'm not a doctor, but I think I can help you.
Thank you. Maria had a pretty severe case of tuberculosis, and at that time, TB was often a death sentence.
Mr. Tanzler.
Maria, you know I told you to call me Karl.
Karl's infatuation is immediate. He devotes virtually all his attention to Maria. His focus on her gravitates towards fixation. Karl never tells Maria about the prophecy or how he feels about her. After all, how do you tell someone that they are your destiny?
Maria's condition is getting worse and worse, and she's withering away in front of the people that love her the most.
Maria, please say something. No, this cannot be!
There is nothing more solitary than grief, and each of us overcomes it in our own way.
I have some post-mortem procedures that I have to do. Please. It'll only take a few moments. Please, if you don't mind, close the door, please.
A moment alone with his beloved Maria. A strange request, yet seemingly so natural for Carl. Death is usually the end of a love story. Any story, for that matter. But this isn't the end for Carl and his lovely Maria. In fact, it's just the beginning.
We commend you, our dear Maria, to Almighty God. We entrust you to our Creator.
Carl Tanzler had spent his whole life looking for the woman he believed was his destiny. But when he finally found his raven-haired Spanish beauty, she was quickly and cruelly snatched away from him.
Carl insists on paying for Maria's funeral, and he pays for her to have a good-sized mausoleum at the cemetery.
You're a good man, Carl.
Death compels us to let go, but for Carl, saying goodbye is impossible.
For years, Carl would go to Maria's grave. He would spend time with her, talking to her and praying for her. This went on day after day, year after year. But over time, this wasn't enough for Carl.
To fulfill the prophecy made by a long-dead relative, Carl brings Maria's corpse home.
You look beautiful, my love. Radiant.
What no one knew, during all those visits to Maria's tomb, Carl was injecting her body with formaldehyde.
At this point, she would be reasonably well preserved. Certainly there would be some deterioration. Her internal organs, for example, would have collapsed by now and rotted away.
Carl is finally with the woman he loves, Maria Elena de Hoyos, his raven-haired Spanish beauty.
No one knew what Carl was up to, in part due to the mausoleum looked perfectly normal from the outside. Carl was going to work every day at the hospital, and then he was returning at night to the love of his life.
I know most people won't understand our love, Maria. So it'll have to be our secret.
Even with all that formaldehyde Carl had used to preserve Maria's body, he can't completely stop her from deteriorating.
You poor thing. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. We just need a little touch-up.
When her eyes rotted, Carl replaced them with glass eyes. it's just a labor of love.
We'll have to watch out for this sort of thing, I suppose.
When her skin would deteriorate, he would cover it in silk and seal it with wax.
Just as beautiful as the first day I saw you, my love.
What the ravages of time and nature destroy, Carl lovingly does his best to restore.
Incredibly, Carl lived this way with Maria's corpse for 7 years.
But I've never been so happy in my life. Can I help you, gentlemen?
You Carl Tanzler?
Yes.
We have permission to search the premises. Step aside, please, sir.
The police come calling that day with warrants and suspicious minds. They don't care about sacred prophecies or undying love.
It all started with a trip to the cemetery by Maria's father. He discovered that her coffin was empty. And since Carl was the only other person with a key to the mausoleum, they suspected he might have something to do with the missing body.
Carl is charged with malicious and wanton disfigurement of a burial for removing Maria's body from her grave. Believe it or not, the case against Carl is thrown out because the statute of limitations for the crime of stealing a corpse has run out.
Carl is free, but a broken man now. The strange prophecy that guided his life is shattered. The love of his life, gone.
The authorities take Maria's body and bury her in a secret location so that Carl can never find her again.
Carl Tanzler moves away to another part of Florida after this bizarre incident, and then quietly lives out the rest of his life. He never repents over what he did to Maria's body. In his mind, they were meant to be together forever.
Many years later, a neighbor of Carl's smells something terrible coming from the inside of his house.
Carl is 75 years old when he's found dead. When they find his body, he's with a dummy that he's made up to look like Maria. It's one last ghoulish note to a very strange love story.
Ah, the things some people will do in the name of love. As for you, consider yourself warned. It only takes one ominous message to darken your destiny. Whether it's from a long-dead ancestor, a sinister stranger, or from unknown forces beyond our comprehension. That's something for you to dwell on until our next descent into true terror.